Viewers, very warm welcome to another episode of V News English program Perspectives, in which we bring before you informed perspectives on some of the most important global and regional developments that are going on around the world. So, in order to discuss one of the most important development that the whole world is facing right now is the intensifying U.S. trade war against primarily the whole world, more than 57 trading partners, but more importantly, with the most key trading partners that Washington has, which includes China, which includes Western Europe, which includes Arab countries, which includes East Asia as well. So in order to try to make sense of that, today we are joined by a leading expert on Geo-Economics and US-China relations, particularly its economic dimension and the economic world order, Mr. Shakeel Ramay. Thank you so much for joining us, Shakeel Saab.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so Shakeel Saab, first explain what is it that Mr. Trump has done? Is it something different from what he promised during his election campaign, or how do you look at the Chinese reaction? Were they prepared for it? Were they expecting it? And let's begin by trying to understand their initial reaction.
Thank you, Ali. I think what President Trump was advocating or campaigning, he is living to his words. We must give him a credit. Either we like it or not, but he is trying to fulfill his commitments or the promises which he made during the campaign. But we have to look at this trade war with two angles. Why Mr. Trump has initiated. There are two angles, there are two challenges which US is facing at this point of the time, at global and the domestic. At global level, there are three indicators of power of any country: economy, diplomacy, and defense. We have seen that during the last 2 decades, so USA power is declining on the economic and diplomatic front. And almost they have declined too much. On the defense, still their power is intact, but it is also showing the tendency to decline in the coming years. But some people say that it has declined because China is not showing its card. The other thing, which is more important for the Mr. Trump, as you asked for, did he fulfill his promises? His domestic audience or his political base. His political base is facing challenges, including other Americans. Like the major challenges, the poverty is increasing. At this point of the time, 37 million, some estimates say 36 million. So Americans are living below the poverty line. But the most alarming aspect is that 49 million people are just above the poverty line. That means any shock from the environment, climate, or from anything can bring them to the poverty trap. Why it is happening? Because the GDP growth is on decline since 1969. So when on average, on the moving average of 20 years, so GDP growth rate was, say, 4.4. In 2024, it is 2.1. Same is true for the per capita GDP. And if you look at the inequalities are increasing. Food insecurity has been increased. Is also creating problem for US. So these are you can say, the brief picture. So what is happening? So the political base of Mr. Trump is blaming China most of the time, as the President Trump has also blamed China. But because when the things were happening, so there were two choices for the policymakers in USA. One choice was to give impetus to their growth, erect mechanisms to bring back the growth. And for that purpose, along the investment, there was need to invest on the education and the skill development, because the skill development gap is increasing. But the second option was to go for the conflict, you can coercive measure with other countries. They go for the coercive measures, and President Donald Trump built his campaign on the second option. Now he is fulfilling his promises to imposing tariffs on China and other countries. In the case of reaction from the China, let it be very clear on the onset. China will not give up. China will fight back, and China will fight till to the end. I have written on this. So why China will fight till to the end? Because
I just want to briefly interrupt you to explain and expand it further for our audience. What does China mean by fight till the end, and what does that mean basically?
Yeah, because 1 or 2 years back, President Xi Jinping, he was talking at a study group with the Communist Party leadership, and he categorically mentioned, by weakness and giving concession, you cannot have a sustainable peace. To have a peace, you need to be strong. So this clearly shows that China is not going to show any weakness. Why China has adopted this policy? Because in the 19th century, China was giving the concession to the European countries, Japan, US, and other countries. It culminated into the century of humiliation. So China have learned this lesson. These signs of weaknesses does not solve the problem, does not secure the sovereignty or the interest of the country. So that's why they have to fight back. That is the policy guidelines which I extract from the different readings of the President Xi Jinping and his special talk on the subject. And second thing, so can China fight back? That is more important question here.
So the more important question right now, Mr. Ramay, is how China will fight back.
That's what I am going to talk about. So can China fight it? Because when you have to fight, you need mechanisms and the system to fight back. Because most of the time, so when we talk about there, we can talk about the need of the thing and the practical application or the practical possibility to achieve. That is very important. So for China, it's a need of the time. On the practical side, it's possible. Why? The possibility is because China has foreseen this situation, especially President Xi Jinping, for many years. He was erecting different mechanisms and devising policy to face such situation. For example, first he launched Belt and Road Initiative. Belt and Road Initiative is an investment and a trade initiative. So where China have invested 1 trillion during the last 10 years, and Chinese trade along the with the BRI country increased from the 1.03 trillion to 2.4 trillion. I think that is a figure. So more than double. One thing. And second thing, 153 countries are member of that initiative. Second, China launched the China International Import Expo. It has attracted 297 companies from the list of 500 Fortune companies at the global level. During the last 7 sessions, the CIE has held its event. That is a huge number. And almost 2,900 new products or technology has been introduced at the event of CII. And the more companies are coming there and find it as a good opportunity to showcase their innovation and new technologies. So China has attracted the global companies here. Third, China has also started to strengthen the mechanisms for investment through the establishment of Asian Infrastructure and Investment Bank. So it is one of the biggest banks. So if you look at the dominance of West or the America, it was based on World Bank, IMF. It was based on WTO, World Trade Organization, and its other political organization like the UN and its agencies. And China has simultaneously built its own institutions. Like BRI, it's a trade and investment institution which is leading the world at this point of time, and the biggest initiative in the human history. Then CIE, it attracting the investment. Then the Bao Forum is another forum which is being held in China to attract the people from all over the world to participate and benefit from the Chinese economy. And China is the biggest trade partner of the world right now, with 6.1 trillion US trade with the world. In these indicators, if you look at, apart from these things, one more things which China has invested along the course. They have invested on innovation and the technology development. Now China is the leading player in innovation technology. For example, Australian think tanks, they have presented a report of the 44 critical technology in the world. and China was leading in 37 technologies. That is a huge list. One thing, if we look at on the other side, the dependence element. So America was what USA was doing. They was trying to eliminate Chinese dependence on American market. For example, they put the sanctions for the technology. They are not allowing Chinese company to import chips or semiconductor technology and other instruments there from USA. So China on the parallel developed its own market. So China invested in these areas and developed its own market. But on the other hand, US was not able to invest on to eliminate or to finish its dependency on Chinese market. For example, when I give these examples, so the manufacturing base, USA cannot compete with China in the manufacturing. And this is very open fact. If US decide to go further to compete with China, they need trillions of dollars and decades to build that infrastructure which China have at this point of the time. So they
I
cannot
want you to
compete.
explain and expand this further.
Yes, I am
You
coming
know
here.
very well. You know very well. U.S. Is proud of being the victor of the two world wars by its sheer industrial capacity, and you are arguing that currently U.S. is not capable of matching China in its industrial capacity.
Yes. And I give you one example. For example, so Tesla, so one of the most important ally of President Trump, they import, they are the dependence on Chinese market is almost they the dependence on the Chinese market for their batteries and these things is a 40%. So they have to import the 40% of their batteries and related material from China. So do you think can Tesla survive if there is a ban or there is a this trade war goes on? You can go for the other examples for other companies like Apple, like Qualcomm. So that the chip company, which is the 30% shares come from the China. Intel, the 30% share come from the China. So these companies really rely on their on the revenue side, but also for the technology. For example, the big technology making company like East West Manufacturing, they are telling the story. It's not about only so one thing or two things. So the cheap labor from China, it's other factors. For example, the availability of the raw material for any manufacturing or the production house. So China have the highest raw material there available there. Then the skill development or the skill development level to go for the manufacturing. China have no match right now. Do you know in 2025, so China have the double number of STEM graduates than the USA. And only 15 or 20 years ago, China USA has the most STEM graduates from the China. And if you look at the skill development in China, in the USA, so top CEO, the CEOs, they are mentioning that there are almost 70% skill development gap in USA required for the different manufacturing companies for the different activities.
So, Mr. Rame, based on what you have said, I think you have identified five areas through which China is likely to challenge the U.S. Tariff wars. Number one is the industrial capacity. The second aspect is cost effectiveness and cost of production, which is obviously cheaper in China in case of unlike the U.S. Number three, they have greater availability of rare earth minerals, which are critical for developing and modernizing advanced IT sector applications. Number four, it is offering more flexible and relaxed terms and conditions for partnerships and investment as part of the BRI, which disincentivizes those countries from disengaging with China. And number five, US imposition of huge tariffs on over 57 countries will have a significant damage to the global industrial supply chain, which China increasingly sort of maintains around the world. So the real question now is, can China protect itself and its key partners from the US economic version, from the US tariff war, and prevent them from becoming a victim of the US coercion?
Look, Ali, that depends on how the other partners behave and the whole other country, on the USA behave. For example, China has remained open for other countries. China is not introducing any type of the tariffs for any other country. China is only retaliating to a US. So what you has imposed on them. So China's market is opening up. If you look at the two session 2025 outcome this year, so that is the highest level economic policy meeting of China. They review the economic situation for the last year and devise the policy for the next year. That happened last month.
I think that's a
So
very
they,
important point, Mr. Ramay. So you have just added another sixth dimension, that while US under Trump administration is restricting market access to US, China is opening up and
China is
offering more
opening up.
relaxed and flexible incentives for investing in China.
They look after the at the Bow Forum. So many leading private sector CEOs met with the President Xi Jinping from the world, not from China, from the world. And President Xi Jinping was telling them, we are making the more competitive market. We are giving the more leverage to the private companies to come here to do the business or the trade with the China. And China is opening up. So China is opening up with the focus. It should be the win-win cooperation. It should not be like that China will make everything and other countries pay for it. And China knows that what is the situation is going on, because China have learned through the experience for the 5,000 years. So it is always a win-win cooperation, because sometimes you
I
are
think that
powerful.
this is very interesting. On a philosophical level, this is very profound. That on one side we have the Trump administration, which is closing down all the global and international structures of the so-called US-led rules-based Western order. Whereas this order, as you've rightly argued, has benefited China more in terms of a free market access, a liberal international trade regime, a relaxed tariff system, and allowing the world to become interdependent in a fair and transparent manner. So basically, it seems a contradiction in terms that a Communist Party led China is actually not just standing by the liberal regime of the Geo-Economics and is upholding the principles which were initially actually founded by the US, while the US is itself closing down on those structures. Your comments?
Look, the Chinese socialism, they call them the socialist. So they know it. So in the global presence, so the best way to increase or you enhance or strengthen your relationship is to share the prosperity. If you are developing, you need to help other countries to develop. And that's why, so for example, Confucius has said this many thousands of years ago. So then other people are saying, so they are following this philosophy, the sharing the prosperity. So if you look at the modernization drive of China, the common prosperity is the key area, the key focus. Common prosperity means the common citizen must be prosperous, not only for the China, but for of the whole world when they are interacting with the other countries. So they should bring the benefits to the common people. And China building on that and opening up and building more linkages. Look, so China, as you asked me, so can China survive this? China have survived this. I give you few statistics. Maybe I also have written in the article a few days back. So US, when the first President Trump started to impose the tariffs, the total trade of China was 4 trillion in 2017. After those all years of imposition of this tariffs and everything, so China total trade in 2024 was 6.1 trillion. That means their trade has been increased by 2.1 trillion, which is a clear indicator. So China cannot only be survive but thrive. 2.1 trillion is a huge amount from say 2017 onward, because he started this trade war in 2018. In the last, you can say the 8 years, They have added 2.1 trillion to do their total trade. It shows that China is linking more with the world and they have the better system to cope with. So that's why
Okay,
when
now,
the
so now I want to ask you. This is a really profound and very insightful analysis by you. Uh, what does this mean for the global South? What does the intensifying and escalating global trade war between US and China mean for the global South and countries like Pakistan? What opportunities it offers Pakistan and what challenges it offers Pakistan?
okay, before coming to your question, I just wanted to complete my argument. During the Trump Biden administration from 2021 onward, you know what type of the allocations the US government have made for the pro manufacturing? $2.1 trillion. On the one side, they are saying don't give the subsidies. They are blaming China for the subsidies or something like that. But on the other hand, they have given 2.1 trillion in the last 3 years. That's why they're promoting. And that's why. So nobody is trying to listen to them. And second, when the Trump announced this, showed the chart of this reciprocal, he was telling the very high. But I was just reading a very interesting article by the David Kelly from the JP Morgan. He was arguing, so US is facing a tariff on average of 4.6% from the world. Why the US is offering a tariff or imposing a tariff 2.2% on average? I'm quoting it, David Kelly. I don't have a direct access to data. So he was saying, so what is it President Trump is showing that have no basis? So that's why he was countering the 10% tariff, because there was only the gap of 2.4%. Why he is imposing the 10%? Now coming to the global South. So this trade war, or you can say another trade war, unilateral attack. You can say the unilateral economic and the trade attack by the President Trump create and given rise to many critical questions. Number one, so can global South trust the USA and the Western countries at large? Because until unless the US was making money out of from the global South, USA had no competition at all in the economic field. He was very nice. As soon as he realized, so there is a competition from the global South, emerging economies are coming from the global South, like China, India, like Turkey, like Brazil, South Africa, many other. So
Vietnam.
They started to impose or punish those countries. Why? Because this is a perfect example of hegemonic mentality. If you are dependent on me, you follow my instructions, all is good. Until unless you start to compete with me, you are not allowed to do that. So this is a perfect example of hegemonic mentality. That is a big lesson from the global South. They should learn that they can treat you as a subordinate, but not on the equal base. And the system which they present, a liberal global order, which they presented to the world, a value-based, a human rights, and equality based, has no basis. These are the very fancy slogans. In reality, they don't hesitate to do anything to protect their hegemony. And if you look at the recent history, the two books help us to understand the clash of civilization and the end of history. They can help us to understand how they think their civilization is the superior and all other civilizations should serve them. One thing and second thing. So this is also shows that the global South has a potential capability to grow without bowing in front of the Western or the US hegemony. China has provided them an alternative. China have proved it for the last, you can say the last 1.5 decade. So you can thrive without US or with the US. You can thrive if you are building the strong mechanisms and your strong policies within your country and along your global South. That's why President Xi Jinping has been raising a very strong voice for the global South since the day one of his leadership. Wherever he go, he raises a very strong voice. And he is erecting the mechanism from the global south to benefit from the Chinese development. For example, from the South-South Fund, China has given 3 billion US dollar. Then China has created other South-South cooperation activities, like China has given 100 development programs for the South-South countries. Then under the Global Development Initiative, China have opened the funds in the multiple areas. If you read the list, you will take it some time to read all the list. So China had, that's what China was proposing, because Chinese leadership was cognizant of the fact that these things will happen. They were experienced.
Okay, let me ask you a supplementary question based on what you just argued. You made a very strong argument that the Western civilization, as Mr. Huntington had warned almost 3 decades ago, more than 3 decades ago, that it's a clash of civilization, a clash of cultures, in which one civilization wants to maintain its dominance over the rest of the world. And other civilizations, if they continue to behave as subordinate and do not challenge the interests and values of that civilization, are tolerated as partners. But once they rise and begin to challenge economically, culturally, diplomatically the Western civilization, they are faced with sanctions, coercion, on even military attack as well. But I want to ask you, why then the US, which traditionally relied heavily, it has very strong hard power, but it also relied heavily on its soft power in order to cultivate and promote liberal agenda and NGOs and social and civil sector development in the global south. Now, why should Mr. Trump eliminate the structures like USAID and Voice of America and Department of Education, which provided US very effective instruments of promoting US soft power?
I disagree with you, Ali.
Okay.
So this was not the element of the soft power. This was a disruption policies, gaining from the chaos and the disruptions. So what US said, another thing the countries did they were promoting the values, the so-called Western values. No, they were cultivating their own assets and agents. They were bringing more the color revolutions. So these were the disruption forces. So I strongly believe in that. They, although in the disguise of these values and everything, these are disruption forces. We can talk in detail in some other time because we have very limited time now. I just want to come to the Pakistan. So what should be Pakistan?
Yes, what are the opportunities and challenges for countries like Pakistan? Yes.
Look, unfortunately, our policy makers are not making out available opportunities. We have had best of the available opportunity of the CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. It has the same model on which China built its economy, special economic zones. China started with the special economic zones, and still they are relying on special economic zones become the global power. What we did in the last many years, almost 12 years, we are unable to functionalize our special economic zones. And this is the short-sightedness of our leadership. And they are trying to run. There is a very old saying, a bird is hand in better than the two in the bushes. But we have the two birds in hand, but we are still venturing in the bushes. We, as every day, we are telling we have created SIFC, Special Investment Facilitation Council. We have created that body. We have bringing that one. But what we have in our hands, we are not exploiting the potential of that opportunity. In this context, I can only say God help us, because the impacts, if the trade war will go on the full scale, with the full scale. So Pakistan, what Pakistan opportunities will Pakistan have? We don't have. We have very less export, which will further decrease. On the other hand, we have import of essential commodities like fuel, like food, so and medicine. From where we will get that? Or we will have to pay very high price, and inflation will be skyrocketed. So what happened in the stock market, that is a very small indication. The situation can be worse if the trade war goes on. But to avoid that situation, we have one opportunity. As I told, China-Pakistan economic corridor, we should put the efforts to make it success. But unfortunately, still, our time is more time is consumed somewhere else. We are
Okay,
still.
I want to briefly interrupt you so that you can expand this very important point further. CPEC stands for China Pakistan Economic Corridor. It is not a infrastructure corridor. It is not an energy corridor. But you are arguing that unless there is vibrant, viable, large scale economic activity around the pivoted around the special economic zones, which lace the entire CPEC, we will not benefit optimally in terms of human resource development, export potential, and employment of our youth. Is this what you are arguing?
Absolutely. Energy and infrastructure, they were the low hanging fruit. So, India and Pakistan were most urgent needs of the Pakistan. And industrialization and industrial transformation, agriculture modernization, scientific and science technology cooperation, along with the many other areas. These were the primary focus of the second phase of the CPEC. Industrialization, modernization of agriculture and science and technology, the primary focus of second phase of CPEC, the second phase of the CPEC. And these areas have the recipe for the development of any other country, any country of the world. Because these are the fundamental things. You have good industry, competitive industry, you have the self-sufficient food, and you are exporting the food products, and you are venturing in the innovation and the new technology development. So these are the three areas which CPEC offered us and is offering us. So that can act as a recipe. But the problem is, Ali, here again the most deep rooted problem is our decision making makers and their so-called think tanks or they are a consultant, they are heavily influenced by the Western models and the Western thinking. So they try to analyze the situation with the Western lens, not with the Pakistani lens. So that's why whatever they think are designed, so you will find if and buts related to the West. Oh, if we do this, America will say that. If we do that, America will say that. And they put an argument we should have a balanced foreign policy or economic policy when we talk about a CPEC. What type of a balance you want? No country in the world have a balanced policy that you can make every country equally happy. Every country think that what it is in a good interest of that country, they do that. So why we are running after this ghost of the balanced foreign policy? There is no balance in the world. So wherever any country they have the interest, they make their relationship. For example, for the decades, India was the close ally of Russia. Now India is the close ally of America. So we need to learn what is the pro-Pakistani policy, not the balanced policy. Look, if we are getting the benefit from China, we should be the friend more close to a China. If we're getting the benefit from US, we must be more close to a US. If we're getting the benefit from the third country, must be very close to that country. The policy, this word of the balanced foreign policy should be banned in Pakistan. This has caused an enormous damage to the Pakistan and the Pakistani economic interest. So we need to go for the pro-Pakistani policy.
Mr. Shakeel Ramay, thank you so much for a very frank, candid, and insightful analysis, like always. I think viewers really enjoy your original, informed, and insightful perspective and analysis. Thank you so much for joining us.